Hello everybody and welcome to Whiz, your family-friendly podcast where we discuss D&D Onslaught, Dice Masters, Heroclix, and the other entertaining games made by WizKids. I'm WizDad, and I'm your reminder that there's only 10 more days till Christmas. You are quickly running out of time, like, very fast. Maybe you need to hit up your local Ollie's tonight. Buy some Nick Fury Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. boosters, or something for that Heroclix fan, or some other wonderful items at affordable prices. WizDad is not affiliated or sponsored by Ollie's. I will be your guide for navigating the competitive and casual scenes of the WizKids Triforce of gaming. It's Heroclix Friday. Today we are going to begin our 2023 year in review. What we will do is we'll start by going through all the sets that were released in 2023 and what their impact was on the Heroclix meta and how they hold up today. However, it's WizKids Progress Report time!
Kowalski, Progress Report.
So for the WizKids Progress Report, a few things to talk about before we hop into Fishing with WizDad and begin our 2023 review. First off, don't forget that, the year is pretty much done as far as WizKids releases go. But January is looking pretty packed when it comes to all WizKids releases. Now, for Heroclix, that's a little different. Heroclix, we have... Oh, and this is actually a little bit of a change. They must have recently changed this. January, we only have the... where'd it go? The Cry for Blood monthly OP kit. Now, I have seen people already getting that in hand, so... I can't remember if the Cry for Blood one was one that was delayed. It was originally December, and maybe they already sent some out. It's showing here a January 10th date of release. So I've seen the dials, I believe, are already up on HC units, so feel free to take a look at that. The thing that has changed is, remember, we were supposed to get Colossal Kong in December. That was pushed to January. And so we were supposed to get Colossal Kong and Sherlock Holmes in January. Sherlock Holmes has now been pushed to February. So that puts it in the same month as the Harley Quinn Valentine's Day Iconics. So as of right now, we only have the Cry for Blood and the Colossal Kong set for January, which perfectly okay for me. I prefer January to be relatively light, because January is coming after Christmas, and so same with like the Champion Clicks event. I'm not going this year because finances just aren't lining up for me to be able to go, and while that stinks, it's just I spend money on family and friends and kids, and usually January is kind of my recovery month where I'm, I spent a little much, I pull back in January, so that's great for me. But for Heroclix fans, that gives us kind of 3 months, effectively, because, Wheels of Vengeance came out, I believe, technically in November, but really came out in October, like the end of October. So that gives us, most of November, December, and then January before the next set. So that gives us a really good reprieve, time to breathe, recover our finances before next phase comes out in February. Now, I am under the impression that it is going to be a very early February release, leading to a January pre-release, which spells well for hopefully Champion Clicks. Hopefully they're able to get some pre-release stuff. The reason why I think that's the case is because we have the Deadpool set for March, and they don't typically like to do 2 sets in back-to-back months that close together, right? Like at the end of February to beginning of March. They don't do that. So that leads me to believe that next phase will be more of the beginning of February, and Deadpool will be more end of March. And it may even be delayed till April, because there's really they don't even have the next sets out here on solicits yet. I believe the set after Wolverine is the DC Time set. I don't remember the name of it, if they showed the name of it yet, but it's like relating to like time travel and stuff. So keep that in mind. So they did push the Sherlock set, which is interesting. That's an icon. That's probably the next Iconics I'm getting. We haven't seen Colossal Kong yet. I'm actually a little shocked we haven't seen the dial. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully we'll get something soon for the Colossal Kong. On the erratas and clarification side, I alluded to this on Wednesday's show. They did make some additional erratas, very minor ones, for DC Heroclix Iconics and an updated errata for the Wheels of Vengeance and DC Organized Play Kit. They did this about a week after they did the ones for Wheels of Vengeance. Really nothing to write home about. At least none that I can see. Let me look back on the Iconics. Where is the Iconics ones? WizKids exclusives. Oh, so what they did for the Iconics for DC, it's for the 010 Superboy. When an opposing character targets Superboy with Outwit or Perplex until your next turn, he can use Battle Fury and Close Combat Expert. They updated that to be until the end of your next turn, which makes a lot of sense, right? I don't remember if I mentioned that, but like if he was targeted with Outwit or Perplex, he just gets Battle Fury and Close Combat, and it's like, what's the point if your next turn it goes away? So that's a good errata. It needed to happen. Perfectly fine with that one. Let's see, DC Organized Play Kit. Oh, that's right. So they did make some fixes to the blanket on the name, the Royal Flush Gang storyline OP kit. Basically, all of the bystanders have a set symbol and a collector number and a point value. So B001 Ace, B002 10, B003 Jack, B004 Queen, and B005 King. They do have set symbols and collector numbers. I actually need to look at that, because I have yet to really dig deep into the bystanders. So if they have set symbols, that means they could be played. Okay. So each set comes with, the legacy card for 10. It comes with the figures, but then and the legacy card for not legacy for 10. I'm sorry, the team up card, but also has the legacy card for Ace. But they also come with bystanders. So looking at these bystanders, you got Ace, which is just a charge E piece, charge super strength. 10 is a stealth outwit with Batman family and Batman enemy. Cool. Jack is a running shot, running shot precision strike and enhancement. Interesting. Queen is a hypersonic RCE in cap. And then King is just charge blades exploit. So all of the bystanders are 10 points except for King, which is 20. That is interesting, though, is that we have bystanders now that you could just pay 10 points to play. That's something to note. I think probably 10 is the only one you would even remotely consider, because she is a stealth, super senses, outwit. She doesn't need... Why does she have stealth when she has Batman ally? That just seems silly. That seems really silly, actually. So, either way, they did give them... I don't know if they didn't have that before, but technically they do have point values and set symbols, so you're able to play those bystanders on their own. No idea if that's going to be playable. Probably not, but maybe if something comes with the Royal Flush Gang, there'll be something there. They also did some other minor changes. Honestly, I can't remember what. I think the main change they made to Wheels of Vengeance is Ninkantu, the damage value click 1 should be 3 instead of 4. I feel like that's the one I haven't seen since last time. Yeah, I think that's the one. Werewolf by Night, I think we already talked about last week when I went over the erratas. So that's pretty much it for the erratas and changes. Now we do have some tournaments going on leading up to the Champion Clicks. So it's we're gearing up, guys. We're gearing up, heading into the preseason with what I call the official Heroclix season kicking off at Champion Clicks. That is like the big, like, end of January. Here we go. Welcome to 2024 Heroclix. New season and the competitive season. Because, like I said before, once that kicks off, then we have two sets back to back. We're gonna have some but some tournaments in between. Like the Kilted Classic will probably happen, a few others. Then we'll have the Rock Cup in May. Then we'll have states, and then we'll have we're gearing up now to the season. I guess full season. We're kind of in preseason right now. So if you want to stay on top of things, because we haven't really had significant events since Worlds. So the meta right now is very, should I say raw? Untested? You've had some events out there, but not really like heavily tested. So it's going to be very interesting going to Champion Clicks to see what exactly is creme de la creme. But that's talking about 2024. I don't want to talk about 2024 yet. Let's take a look back at 2023. And the goal is to look at all the sets that were made in 2023 and see how they stand up to time. I'll see you on the other side in Fishing with WizDad.
Get your gear, little man. We're going fishing. And I mean now.
Alright, so let's begin our 2023 recap. So what I want to do is I want to do kind of like I did with Onslaught and go through the releases that occurred in 2023 in order, but also talk a little bit about the impact it made on the meta or the competitive scene, whichever, for Heroclix. The reason why I want to do that is, one, it's good to keep all this info in posterity. It's hard sometimes to remember how things were a year ago. I'm sure I hope a lot of people can relate. Maybe I'm just crazy, but it's good to keep some of this info in your head, to keep an idea of how things were, so that way when you look into the future, you're not looking at a rose-colored glasses thinking, oh, last year was amazing. So going into 2023, we had just gotten the Avengers Forever set, I believe, in November-ish. And overall, that set was okay. We were still reeling a bit from Disney Plus had made such a huge splash, and then we had gotten X of Swords, and so we were just like inundated with X of Swords play, whether it be the main set or the storyline OP kit. And so the storyline with all the months and everything, we were knee deep in X-Men heaven, essentially. A lot of keyword cheating, a lot of bringing in like Jubilees and stuff like that. We were starting to get to the golden age of X-Men, I would say. Well, you could argue the Wolverine and Cyclops from Xavier's school was arguably the golden age, with how crazy it was with that and the Blackbird and the call-ins. But I would argue probably the beginning of 2023 into 2022 was really the golden age of X-Men Heroclix. Maybe not in the way you intended it to be, but that's where we had a lot of swap in. We had, Apocalypse, Genesis being legal, and then them bringing everyone into X-Men. So going into 2023, we started things off with a January set, Batman Team Up, and that introduced the rings and the constructs. By far one of the most meta-defining sets we've had in a while was the rings. The rings just added so much to the game. The set itself, let's go through some of the figures, and let's talk about some of the figures in the set. And I'm going to pick out some that I think impacted the meta and impacted the competitive scene, either at that time or now. And then we could kind of judge, okay, was this set good overall? So obviously, all the rings, the bat belt, all of that stuff, absolutely some of the best equipment we've gotten in a long time. Now, would I argue, is it good equipment? I'm a little worried about how overpowered they are. But keep in mind also, Batman Team Up really introduced the concept of qualifying keywords to equipment, which I think that is what makes the rings even more powerful than they were initially. The fact that if they have that Lantern Core keyword, they just get the ring for free is what kind of sets the rings apart from everything. And this is where it all started, folks. Don't forget, we're not even to a year of having the qualifying keywords. So from the get-go, just that introduces a ton to the competitive scene and instantly elevated Batman Team Up to a higher level, like a higher tier of quality Heroclix set. The only thing I would say that really brought the set down, in my opinion, is one, it was the introduction of, well, I guess you could say the Exoswords storyline OP kit was the introduction, but this was the first main set introduction of you were only getting 4 characters and then a construct. I still am a little, I still don't know how I feel about that concept. I feel like that has still led itself to a very dangerous road that we're still on. Wheels of Vengeance, for example, only 4 characters. I know one of them is a Twinkie base, but still, it set a precedent that I don't know if we really wanted. Now, after everything came out, you could argue it's fine because of how many constructs you needed. Nowadays, if you're buying some Batman Team Up, you're probably buying it to look for those constructs more than some of the figures in the set. The figures in the set, I will say, probably haven't held up. Some of them haven't held up as well as haven't held up well in the competitive scene. Starting real quick, going through kind of some of the set. Out of all the commons in the set, really, you've only got some of the Gotham City Underworld figures that are really making an impact. And this is for Modern and for Pulp. Really, it's just the Batman Team Up characters. Not Batman Team Up, the Gotham City Underworld figures that I feel like are making any sort of impact in the competitive scene. And to the uncommons, it's pretty much the same thing. Poison Ivy, the Penguin, Joker. Really, it's just Gotham City Underworld. No one's playing Bumblebee or Jinx or any of those characters. Now, into the rares, things get quite a bit different. You saw the impact of, obviously, Deathstroke, who is a meta staple for Pulp. As he should be. He's very good. You've seen Peacemaker, who really had to have some changes, had to make some things because he made mission points a little too easy. But he was still an impact at the time and going forward. The Brain has a little bit of impact for 35 points, especially in Pulp. And then there remains to be seen about Aquaman, specifically Ruler theme with his Team Up card, being able to give standard characters that share a keyword with him the Dolphin symbol. Dolphin symbol has seen a lot of help recently and a lot of bumps thanks to Notorious, which we'll get to maybe this episode. So I would argue that Aquaman is also important. So we're looking at, 4 of the rares making a competitive splash, whether that's now or at the time. Most of these are making a splash now because remember, Pulp didn't exist when this set came out. I believe Pulp was introduced. Ooh, that's a wonderful question. I believe it was introduced in like February or April. May 5th, I'm seeing an update from Whiz Kids. Yeah, talking about premiering 2 new formats. So at the time, these figures didn't make that much of an impact. Peacemaker did a bit, and Aquaman probably hadn't. So really, none of these rares made an impact in the competitive scene at the time the set was released. Now, thanks to Pulp format, much better impact. Going into the super rares, really, I mean, you've got the Prime Batman, super important back in the day, still important today. Being able to get the Bat Belt and the Green Lantern for 25 points, still very playable. I would argue the most playable out of all the super rares from this set is Saint Walker. Um, I don't know if he really hit the ground running, but he did start seeing a lot more play later spring going into states. He saw a lot of play with some of the, there's the Prime Iron Spider teams. There was a few other teams that really made use of his 30-point dial, giving you the Blue Lantern ring, enhancement in power, but within range. And since he has the Blue Lantern ring, it's also +1 attack, and he's got perplex. He's got all this stuff. Incredibly good piece. Even today, he is a great piece. And then we have the Prime Wonder Woman, who hasn't seen a ton of play. She hasn't. And you could go out there if you're curious about any of this. You can go out to HC units. Now, HC units wasn't really a big thing, I don't think, in January. It became bigger down the line. But you could go out to HC units, and if you click on any of these figures, you could see at the bottom how many teams were really building with this figure in mind. And she really didn't start seeing play, like significant building, until states. And that might be relating to the fact that we didn't have a ton of tournaments at the time. We had Champion Clicks in January. The Kilted Classic, I believe, was in March-ish. And then the Rock Cup was really more Silver Age than Modern. So Prime Wonder Woman is definitely one you want to keep on your radar going forward. But there remains to be seen how much impact she's going to make. I think it's going to be a decent amount, but we'll have to see. But outside of that, it's really just those three, the two Primes and Saint Walker, that really made an impact in the competitive scene. Going into the chases, I hate to say it, but the chases of this set, outside of Scrappy, have not seen much at all. And Scrappy was only ever really played on the sideline. You're never really playing Scrappy. Scrappy just comes in for your celebrity or detective team. But Fred, even Batman, who arguably was probably one of the more meta pieces in the set, just didn't see much play, and he still doesn't, unfortunately. So that kind of leads me to think, like, if you think of how many I talked about, and we could talk about Legacy real quick. The Legacy cards were cool. We had some of the duo figures come back, but really out of all the Legacy cards, you're looking at Commissioner Gordon as a free TK, sorta saw a little bit of play, but it's really World's Finest and the Casey Green Lantern that was elevated beyond all the rest. World's Finest, an amazing Legacy card, 60 points, 3 clicks, but hard to take out. They're looking now, like in per HC units, in July there was over 150 teams that were built with World's Finest. And that might not seem much, but remember, not everyone uses HC units, so that just kind of gives you an idea. I would almost rather see on here, in the stats down there, maybe I'll mention this to Clay, it'd be cool to see percentage. Like, what percentage of builds during this month included that? So 150 out of how many would be interesting. Green Lantern obviously saw play because 20 points for leadership, and he gets the Green Lantern ring for free. Amazing value. So you have those 2 Legacy cards, you have the 1 chase, the 3 super rares, and that's kind of really all that came into the competitive scene, at least the very top level. I'm talking about winning competitive tournaments. I remember when I went to the Champion Clicks event last year in January. First off, this set was the event was a little bit earlier in the month. The set hadn't fully released; it was in pre-release, but we got to play a lot of Batman Team Up. But it wasn't legal for the modern events. I know at that time, it was still very much a X-Men rush. We were still getting used to tarot cards. We were still getting, basically it was across the map. I remember playing against Isaac, I believe in top 8, and he had the I don't think it was Sky Tyrant at the time. I think it was the X-Men swap team, and just being able to just cross the map using Polaris to free TK, having Venom Mags to free TK, and just kind of come over. I think it was Sky Tyrant, to be honest. Sky Tyrant and Sarkarian Iron Man, and just, wallop your team. I know at Champion Clicks I was playing an Avengers team, Avengers Swap, because I love Avengers Swap. And I was playing it with, it was technically a soldier themed team, because I was playing the 2 Captain America swaps, Sarkarian Iron Man. Was he a soldier? No, I don't think he was. I basically had a bunch of Avengers swaps and Emperor Gladiator. And so Emperor Gladiator stayed, and then I swapped to effectively Sarkarian Iron Man. Let's see, Sarkarian Iron Man, Scarlet Witch. I had Emperor Gladiator, so that puts me at 225, and then Miss Kang. I really liked Miss Kang at the time. And so that was kind of just a picture, Scarlet Witch, Sarkarian Iron Man was still big. X-Men was by far the biggest team, because you still had the Jubilees that could be played, and if you didn't win map, then you swapped out to something else. So competitive at the time was still X-Men Heaven. But if you want to look at Batman Team Up, you also got the introduction, I should say, the introduction of the mystery cards, which even today, I don't think we've fully cracked the potential of mystery cards. We're getting better ones that are a little bit easier, but I think some of the ones for Batman Team Up still have room to be played to be more beneficial. I know, looking at some of the, I think it may have been the Cry for Blood set, the OP kit, there are characters coming out or have come out that help you get clue tokens or faster. So I like the concept of mystery cards. I'm glad they've continued them, sprinkled them into different sets and OP kits. It's smart. Give us more of it. More of these cool mystery cards, more items or equipment. It's very neat. So if I were to look at Batman Team Up as a whole going into 2023, obviously I can't just not include the rings as and the equipment as showing how important the set was and is. So obviously it's going to be one of the higher tier sets. The problem is the figures that you get in them. If you don't pull one of those 2 primes, the super rare primes, you're probably really going to be hurting on value at this point. Really, you're looking at constructs, and now some of the constructs, this is kind of financial talk, I guess. If you're looking at the constructs, some of them are still worth a decent amount of money. The chainsaw, I believe, is probably still like $15-$20 at this point. But, it's still probably one of the sets that you want to pick up, because if you get a ring, you get some of those good side constructs, you're going to hopefully make your money back on the booster, even if you pull poorly. I try to look at sets of, sure, I can hit the jackpot and get an Ultra Chase or a Chase, but what is the likelihood that I get a booster, pull figures, and feel like I got equitable value for what I put in? So if I buy a booster of Batman Team Up, say $16, $17, however much it is nowadays, do I feel like I get $16, $17 worth of clicks out of it? Or should I have bought singles? Batman Team Up still holds some value because of the constructs, because of the rings. Even the mystery cards help a little bit. The figures themselves won't. So you're really counting on hitting some of the out of the park, the good constructs. Would I buy Batman Team Up today? Now, I am missing a decent amount of the constructs and rings. Looking over there at my table now where I have them all listed or all out, I'm missing some. Like, I don't have much of the red construct or the Star Sapphires. I mostly have the yellow and green, and I think I have all of the orange lanterns constructs. So probably not. I would probably just buy singles. But if you see one on the rack, it doesn't hurt to get some. You might end up with a ring, a mystery card, or a good construct. So after Batman Team Up came out, we then had a little bit of a break. We didn't have much in the way of tournaments, if I'm remembering correctly. I believe, let's see, going back in time. And once again, HC units, yeah, there wasn't really much going on at the time. We had some Majestic tournaments. There's a broadcast event in April. The Kilted Classic really didn't hit till April 15th. So there was kind of a bit of a lull. And that's when we got Spider-Man Beyond Amazing. If you don't remember... Oh, and also I should mention, we got a rules update, right? Batman Team Up introduced a rules update that changed quite a bit of things. I won't go into the rules update. Maybe I'll save that for next week, of the impact of the rules and what I think about those changes. But don't forget we did have a rules change because they were also introducing terrain markers. And that's what we get with Spider-Man Beyond Amazing. Spider-Man Beyond Amazing came out March 15th, for those that have forgotten. Now remember, that's the release date. Usually that means there's a pre-release a couple, 2 weeks before that. Spider-Man Beyond Amazing, I think, is an interesting set. Now, it did include some equipment. It did include a lot of terrain markers, which absolutely defined and changed the competitive scene. The fact that you can now play blocking, play hindering, play water, and you could bring some of those big pieces in, changed things. No longer were you tied to the fact that, oh, they put me on, the farm or whatever it was called, the field, and now I have no elevated and no water. I'm on the most basic map out there, so I can't do some of the things I want to do. Well, you could bring terrain markers now. It was a big to-do. I think people are still learning how to really effectively use terrain markers. It really made super strength better. But we also got equipment. Don't forget that. We got 7 pieces of equipment: the web shooters, billy clubs, shot gauntlets, boomerangs, pumpkin bombs, and the 2 symbiotes. They were not as meta impactful as the rings. Like, by far they were not. None of them were defensive outside of, like, the black symbiote, which gave you stealth. And even then, I don't think the symbiote is really being played on its own. Typically, it's being played as someone with the symbiote keyword for free. So you're looking at more offensive equipment, which at the time we had this equipment from Disney Plus, we had the equipment from all the swords, and we had the rings. So I feel like the equipment from Spider-Man kind of felt a little not as great, if that makes sense. But they're still impactful. I mean, the billy clubs are great, in my opinion. Boomerangs falls in line with the alchemical fire that we got in Future Foundation, which was also legal at the time. So say what you will about that. So looking at just the commons from Beyond Amazing, I could tell you these commons are not Beyond Amazing. Really, it was just Aunt May that really saw any sort of significant play. 10 points to give you support, which at the time was the news support, which we know now is how it is now, which was significant. It was a significant change. And we also saw the change to Spider-Man Family, the Spider-Man TA, which made it the super sense as like Wonder Woman TA. So really, out of the commons, Aunt May was the only one that made any sort of splash. And that was sort of in Modern, definitely more in Pulp, I feel like, when that was introduced. But in Modern, she really did not see much play until States, which is when everyone was really starting to build more intensively. The uncommons in this set are not good, to be honest. None of these are being played. Just looking at all of them, none of them are being played. The rares also just aren't being played. Prime Kingpin, even he doesn't see much play. The only figure that really saw, in my opinion, a decent amount of play, it's not even my opinion, the only rare of significance from this set that has seen play more recently. It wasn't until States that this figure blew up. Was Prime Spider-Man. To think that it took 3 months really for Prime Spider-Man to really explode is kind of crazy, to be honest. He didn't see, I guess when people realized give him the Necro Sword, play him on the smaller maps, because also remember, this is the beginning of smaller maps. We got sort of smaller maps in Batman Team Up, but Spider-Man is really when we just only got smaller maps. So the advent of smaller maps, the rules change. Prime Spider-Man became a competitive juggernaut. Not juggernaut, but a competitive, like, staple. And that continues today. That will continue. After rotation, he's continued. Now he lost the Necro Sword, which was kind of his bread and butter. He goes in, you don't get super sensitive shape change. He's able to just wallop you with his flurry. It was pretty gross. I played him. It was pretty gross, and I played against a bunch of them. Going forward, still got to know how to handle this Prime Spider-Man. I mentioned it a couple weeks ago on the Gauntlet. It is definitely a piece you've got to prepare for. However, beyond that Spider-Man, that's kind of it for the rares. Even in Pulp, these aren't seen play. They just aren't. I've seen Mysterio be played a little bit, just because he makes those pogs that kind of do a lot. But no, like none of these. And even going into the super rares, you do have Prime Iron Spider, which I mentioned before, who saw, I feel like, a lot more play in the summer, being able to kind of, and this was before the errata. Before the errata, he just gave everyone Sinister Syndicate and then kind of gave everybody, made things a little bit better. And then the errata means they had to have it printed on their base. So it wasn't working as intended, but still, even today, he's still very good about getting people Safeguard Outwit, the whole, when he uses leadership and succeeds, characters within range can't use the effective equipment. That's big also. And he honestly is probably the only play from the super rares. So another Prime, like Doc Ock, is fine as a super rare. Carnage wasn't great. Madam Web wasn't great. Venom Thanos, no. Even Prime Green Goblin hasn't seen like any play. So, we're going into the rares and super rares with maybe 2 to 3 figures. We're going into the chases. And that's really where things change dramatically. The introduction of the Carnage chases was significant. It introduced the concept of hero figures that if they KO one or more opposing characters, they're going to heal past their starting line. And they had great lower point starting lines. Obviously, the creme de la creme is Carnage Silver Surfer. I would argue the rest of the Carnage chases don't see a fraction of what Carnage Silver Surfer plays. He is by far the most meta piece in this set. Next to, you could argue that Prime Spider-Man is runner-up. But Carnage Silver Surfer at 50 points is arguably what makes people feel positive about this set. Because the other half of the chases are the Avengers, so it's like the Gwen Stacy versions of Avengers, and none of those have made an impact. Like, you can argue, okay, Gwenable Hulk, maybe, but no. Relating to all the other figures, Carnage Silver Surfer is by far, like, in July, 261 builds were using it, 171 in June, and that's when everyone was really ramping up using HC units. So, if you look at it more objectively, Spider-Man Beyond Amazing wasn't exactly amazing. Even the legacy cards, the only really played ones out of all the legacy cards is one, Frogman. Frogman's great, especially with the advent of new knockback damage. Frogman is great. And then you have the Legacy Carnage, the colossal one at 10 points, who also saw a ton of play, in tandem with Carnage Silver Surfer half the time. So you're looking at two Legacy, one Chase, maybe one Prime Super Rare, one Rare Prime, and Aunt May. So six figures that are like highly competitive. That generally doesn't spell for a like very high tier set. It's just I feel like we elevate the set more because of Carnage Silver Surfer. But if you buy boosters out of the set, you're likely not getting Carnage Silver Surfer. If you're buying boosters, all the cool terrain markers don't come in any of the boosters. They all come in the 2 play at home kits and the starter set. So honestly, when I see Spider-Man Beyond Amazing on the set on the shelf, I don't reach for it. In my opinion, it is not a set you probably want to buy into. When you only have one chase that out of the 10 or 12 that are significant, it's hard to reach for that. So like I would put Beyond Amazing down below Batman Team Up as far as good sets. It's still a decent set, but it's just not as like my head canon tells me it's a better set than it actually is. So coming out of Spider-Man, which once again, March, we go into the second, I would consider the major event would be the Celtic Classic. Looking at the results for the Celtic Classic on, once again, HC units, you can look at, the winner of it all was Ken Small. He won with, Scarlet Witch, Arachnite, Death Metal Wonder Woman, Mad Jim, Felix Faust, and then the Legacy Green Lantern. And Star Sapphire, the 25.1 from Wonder Woman 80. So he was a unthemed, but basically not a lot of impact as far as like high level. Like he didn't use a Carnage Silver Surfer or anything like that. He was using Scarlet Witch and Arachnite, which came from 2022. Even Death Metal Wonder Woman came from them, and Mad Jim and Felix. Like basically everything but Legacy Green Lantern and the objects came from the previous year. If we went down further, you have Rob Olger, who did a Merlin team, which used Saturnines. Lucas's third place team is probably the first one that really started to dip into a little bit of the newer sets from 2023 that he used World's Finest at 60 points. Now, of course, obviously, once again, the rings and the utility belt and stuff like that made an impact. It was just we didn't see the figures themselves make an impact, at least yet. We did see Corey Gould at 4th have the Prime Wonder Woman. So there you go. Alex Mater played Prime Wonder Woman also, but he also used Saint Walker in his team, which was a unthemed. And this is where you saw a lot of unthemed teams, by the way. Now, Jay is the one that really... Not saying he set the standard, J Major at 6th, but he did play what would soon be a popular team of double Carnage Silver Surfers. I know one of the biggest detriments at the time, why there wasn't a lot more Carnage Silver Surfers, was his cost. As soon as people realized how good he was, he skyrocketed up to like $200 or more. And even today, he's well above $100. Just because of how impactful he is, and the fact that you generally want to have 2 of them. So J Major at 6 played 2 Carnage Silver Surfers, Death Metal Wonder Woman, 2 of the OP prize, grand prize Apocalypses, and a Genesis and a Carnage. And then just going down the list, you could see, there was a Prime Kingpin, there was St. Walker's, saw a decent amount of play. There was an Iron Spider team. Overall, the Celtic Classic didn't have a ton of splash from 2023 yet, outside of equipment and like Carnage Silver Surfer, which is what I was alluding to of the 2 sets. As much as I fondly remember Batman Team Up because of the introduction of mystery cards and the rings, and how much I think fondly of Spider-Man Beyond Amazing, those 2 sets didn't have, outside of those kind of auxiliary or ancillary, whichever one, outside of those parts, the figures themselves, there wasn't a ton that made a splash. Like, definitely not as impactful as like Disney Plus, for example, or even X of Swords. So if we then go to kind of the last part I'm going to talk about in today, this is going to be kind of a multi-week thing. We're going to do kind of the first half of the year. So we're going to talk about going into the Rock Cup, Heroclix for Huntington's event, and kind of right before we get to States is kind of where we'll probably stop it for today, because this has already been going on a little bit. Going into May and June, which the competitive season had been underway, and we were still recovering from 2022, 2021. You know, the competitive scene hadn't hit the apex yet. The competitive scene hadn't had like a huge array of tournaments, and we didn't really start getting that until this year, FYI. You know, spoilers for later. But going into May and the Heroclix for Huntington's event, that was Silver Age, so I'm not going to spend too much time talking about it because it is Silver Age. But that is where we did see kind of the explosion of Carnage Silver Surfer and a little bit of Prime Spider-Man. That's where the 2023 figures started to see a lot of play. Easton, who won the Silver Age Championship, played Scarlet Witch, 2 Carnage Silver Surfers, basically a modern team, just with some, you know, Mandarin rings and stuff like that. Andrew Mashburn, who got second, really didn't play any 2023 related figures. He had a Blue Lantern ring on a maggot. That was about it. Scott Crampton played Scarlet Witch, Sarkarian Iron Man, Bizarro Green Arrow, Mad Jim, Star Sapphire. You see the usual suspects in silver, but we did start seeing more and more of what would inevitably be the competitive team to beat for a while, and that was the double Carnage Silver Surfer, maybe a Sarkarian Iron Man, Venom Magneto. Molecule Man was still a big problem at the time. You just saw a bunch of that. And then the Heroclix for Huntington Silver Age event, the Rock Cup, still the same. Now, we did start getting in May our first Iconics. We saw the Spider-Man double identity. I've gone over all the Iconics. None of the Iconics made an impact. Probably, they still really haven't made an impact, but we're starting to get to the point where they will be. But just keep that in your head, that it isn't until the end of 2023 that Iconics really made a big impact on the competitive scene. But we did see our first one in May, the Spider-Man Double Identity, and then we saw the Captive Hearts Wolverine in June. And so the last thing I will go over, I'm going to leave the Avengers 60th review for next week, kind of talking about how that set impacted the meta. But we did start seeing a little bit of what the set has to offer, because remember, we saw the set super early at HeroClix for Huntington's at the sealed event that happened there, and that's where we really saw the power that the set was going to bring. The set, I feel like, brought a decent amount, but we saw really what the chases, and I think someone even pulled the Ultra Chase, at least the team-up cards. We started seeing the chases there, and that's when I think the competitive scene really was altered by that. And I guess that could be like a little bit of a tease, if you will, like a tease for next week's episode. So we go into States, and that is where the HeroClix competitive scene ramped up significantly. We left HeroClix for Huntington's. Everyone was feeling great. It was an amazing, amazing event. It was a joy to help run it with Howard and Scott Porter and Aaron Morgan and all of them. It was a great, great time. And that was really, for me, like, Champion Clicks gave us a little bit of taste of, yes, this is what we've been missing since COVID. This HeroClix for Huntington's event was kind of the first one where, because if you remember, the original one back in 2022, the first in-person one, happened on like Mother's Day, so like not everyone was able to make it. It was still a successful event, but we knew that 2023 was going to be bigger, and it was. It was an amazing, amazing event, and I'll touch on that just a little bit. It's for those that haven't been, and I'm hoping the plan is still to have it. Like, we're still going to have the Rock Cup and everything this year. I'm hoping they make announcements. Usually it's at the beginning of January. But yeah, it was a magical weekend, in my opinion. It kicked things off with the Scott Crampton tournament, where it's like he was able to get, I believe with Howard, a bunch of absolutely terrible old sealed sets, like Streets of Gotham, giant size Avengers. Like, there were so many like bad old sets, and you're basically playing like a sealed event with some restrictions. Like, you can only have it was a 3-person, a 3v3, and it was nutty. I don't remember who won. It was kind of like an intro event. It was the Tracy Brock, I believe, intro event, and it was a lot of fun because everyone pulled bad. That was kind of the point, and you had to play with these terrible figures, and I loved it. Like, I can't wait to do it next time because it was absolutely terrible. Like, from a figure standpoint, playing wise, it was a lot of fun. Of just like, well, if I lose, I know it's just because everyone's got terrible figures. Like, mine's just more terrible. That led into the next day, which was, I believe, I can't remember if it was the sealed, if it was the sealed event yet, or if it was our first. I guess I could go out here and look. Friday was, our Scott Porter versus the World. That event was great when it started. The problem was that we were delayed in getting the Avengers 60th. We had to wait multiple hours before we got it. Howard was nice enough and a good sport of like getting us some other boosters to use like for a mini tournament in the meantime, and just kind of play a little bit until we waited for those Avengers 60th anniversary. And I'll never forget waiting out like by the street with Scott Porter, sitting here waiting for the FedEx or the UPS truck to show up to drop off the boosters. When they finally did, the whole community was super nice about it. They knew it was outside of our control. We just didn't get the boosters in time, but we finally did after some time, and it was a great tournament because it was a set that wasn't supposed to come out for another month, and we got very, very early, like incredibly early. Overall, that was a fun event. Scott Porter versus the World. I always enjoy that event. I like seeing Scott play also, because he does surprisingly well in these Scott Porter versus the World tournaments. Sometimes you forget that he is a good player. I mean, he isn't like a scrub, if you will say. And then Saturday of that event was the Invitational. That was the 3v3 team event. That was Silver Age, Extreme Highlander. If I remember correctly, did I play in that event? I think I played in that event, but I did not do very well in it. Unfortunately, I'm blanking on what I played in that event. But either way, neither here nor there. It was a fun. Even going into the Silver Age Championships, it was definitely fun to look at, watch, and it was a weekend filled with camaraderie, people seeing people they haven't seen in forever. I got to see a bunch of my Canadian friends. Like, I got to see Jay Solomon and Emily. I got to see all of them who I haven't seen in person. I saw some of them at Champion Click, so I guess I should back that up. But it's nice to be able to see people you don't get to see regularly. So I'm hoping this year it'll be very much I guess 2024 it'll be very much the same. But it really was the second event of the year that really made Heroclix feel back to how it used to be, and that kind of hope was really what's made 2023, like, going into states, a very promising, uplifting time. We still didn't have WKOs, but we still had hope going into 2023. And next week we will talk about the rest going into Avengers 60th. We'll talk about Notorious, talk about Wheels of Vengeance. We'll go through those set, talk about Nationals, Worlds. How did 2023 land? We know for the first half of it, it was looking very promising. Did it meet expectations, or did it, exceed expectations? So thank you guys for listening to this episode of Whiz. I hope you guys have a wonderful weekend. I'll be back on Monday for another Mashup Monday. And yeah, I'll see you then. Bye.